In middle school, I remember seeing posters telling me that if I believed in something, I could achieve it. On the last day of 8th grade, my teacher, Mr. Schwab, prophesied that my teammates and I would win a state football championship. He said, "I cannot wait to see you guys in the dome." 4 years later, I would gain some understanding towards the meaning behind those posters and my teacher's words. For 3 seasons, my teammates and I trained and fought hard. I watched a lot of seniors end their seasons in defeat. No matter what, though, I never lost hope in Mr. Schwab's words. Everything lined up perfectly my senior year. Everyone that had been in Mr. Schwab's classroom that day in 8th grade was now starting on varsity, and the cherry on top of it all was that my teammates had voted me a team captain. The first game that year was against our conference rivals, Sisseton and Redmond. They hated us and we hated them. Over the past 3 years of playing them, I had noticed that things always got a little too intense. Usually somebody would end up hurt and miss the rest of the season. The game went back and forth. We were bruised and battered going into the fourth quarter, but we managed to score 2 unanswered touchdowns and conquered our rivals 37-23. There was no better way to start our dream season than winning the first game and beating our rivals on their own field. The celebration would not last long. Our next opponents on the schedule were the West Central Trojans. The game was brutal. I was flying all over the field chasing down ball carriers and blocking assignments. They punished us for being overconfident in our abilities and unsound in our technique. We lost the game 55-20. The Trojans had dominated us, and it hurt more than just our bodies. Our confidence was shook, and Mr. Schwab's words seemed out of reach. Next on the schedule were the Roncalli Cavaliers. I still had a bad taste stuck in my mouth from the week before, and Roncalli was another team that was good every year. The game was neck and neck until the final moments. We were winning 21-20 with around 2 minutes left in the game, then everything fell apart. Roncalli marched on the field and got into field goal range. They lined up and kicked the ball over the corner of the goalpost. It looked like the kick had missed its target and went too far to the right. The referee signaled the kick was good. We'd lost the game 23-21, and I felt robbed. The Groton Tigers would be our next opponents. They had a punishing quarterback and linebacker named Sam Thorson. This game would be a slugfest, and I was ready for a fight. My wounds still stung from the salt that had been poured into them. I was making life hell for Thorson, but he was doing the same for me. It was 14-14 going into the fourth quarter. Groton ran a trick play near the end of the game and had a wide receiver throw a pass to Thorson in the end zone. It was hard to tell if Thorson had actually caught the ball or if it had bounced off the ground. After a few moments of deliberation, the referee called it a touchdown. We had lost again, 21-14. We were on the brink of collapse and needed to have faith now more than ever. With an unsatisfying record of 1-3, we prepared for our homecoming game against the Redfield Pheasants. The biggest obstacle in our way was that Redfield had a bruiser of a running back named Cameron Pudwell. He was a big boy built like the Juggernaut from X-Men. Pudwell and I clashed all game, trading blow for blow. We won the game 29-7. And suddenly every bruise and injury we had suffered was worth it. We had a date with destiny, and we were not going to miss it for the world. The next challengers on the schedule were the Britton Hecla Braves. The game took place on a field of mud covered in snow and ice during a blizzard. It was sloppy and reminded me of a game of backyard football. I felt like we were playing against two opponents. On one hand we had the Britton Hecla Braves, and on the other there was Mother Nature. I did my best to channel my inner Viking and overcome both. Rising to the occasion, we won the game 22-14. The victory is sweet. We were turning around our dream season. Driven by Mr. Schwab's words, and now more than ever, we marched on, ready for whoever was unlucky enough to have to face us next. Our next victims were the Dual Cardinals. They did not stand a chance against the maroon and gold wave coming their way with all the momentum of a tsunami. We pummeled them 35-0, and it felt good. With another victory under our belts, we were beginning to pick up speed. The team started giving off the vibe that we were too strong to fall apart now. With our unimpressive record of 4-3, we prepared for our last game of the regular season against the Webster Bearcats. Webster had not beaten us in the last 3 years. The game was fast and brutal. We destroyed them 47-13, but no matter how hard we hit them, they hit us right back. I admired Webster's heart. No matter how bad things looked, they continued to fight on as hard as they could. We had managed to win our last game of the season, and were now hosting a first-round playoff game at home. For our first playoff matchup, the Del Rapids Couriers would be our opponents. During my high school career, we had lost to the Couriers in the first round of the playoffs 2 times. I had seen many of my friends end their football careers in Del Rapids. I decided that it was time for some of the Couriers to end theirs in Milbank. The game was a beatdown. Whatever expectations Del Rapids had of winning were soon shattered after we scored 3 unanswered touchdowns in the first quarter. They had walked into a nightmare they were not ready to handle. We smashed and charged our way to victory 35-6. After the game, we waited to hear who had won the game between West Central and Sisseton. Fate made the decision that we should face Sisseton in the second round of the playoffs. They would be out for more blood this time and still soaring high off taking out West Central. This game was more intense than its counterpart had been at the beginning of the season. We had both drawn lines in the sand and neither of us was giving any ground. After 4 of the most intense quarters of football, we defeated the Redmen 21-14. The Todd County Falcons were the only team standing in the way of our dream game. From what I had heard, their football division was not as competitive as the rest of the ones in the state. It looked like we were going to have a cakewalk into the championship game. Almost everyone who lived in Millbank must have been there to cheer us on. It was the last game I would ever play at A.B. Campbell Stadium. We ended up beating the Falcons 63-12 in the third quarter because of a mercy rule. We had finally made it to the only game that mattered, the one that everybody played to win. We were set to play the St. Thomas More Cavaliers of Rapid City for the championship. They had not been defeated all season and were the favorite to win the game. With a big quarterback, fast wide receivers, and a powerful running back on the roster, the Cavaliers were looking to score a lot and often. After watching game tapes of the offense at work, I was reminded of the Germans' blitzkrieg technique during World War II. Ever since that day in 8th grade, I had been preparing for this game. Mr. Schwab's words had inspired me. He had been the apple, and I was Newton understanding gravity for the first time. My very belief in what Mr. Schwab had told my class that day set in motion a series of thoughts that became the events unfolding before my very eyes. Faith and dedication to the process of hard work were the keys that had unlocked my destiny to play and win this championship game. I stepped onto the field that day possessed. I could smell St. Thomas More's fear from the first snap of the ball. Every loss, every injury, every doubt, and every fear I had known in the last 4 years was brought out and destroyed in the form of St. Thomas More football players. They had come up against an unnatural force that had been inspired to believe in itself and stood in control of its own destiny. We had given every fiber of our existence, and we had won 34-20. Time stopped for us as we hoisted our trophy high for all to see. Maroon and gold flooded onto the field all around us. It was in the sea of people that I saw him. Mr. Schwab was standing there smiling. The circle had been completed. Mr. Schwab had inspired us by believing that we would do something great, and in return we did do something great.